Your identity is not in the sport. Your identity is not in your business.
Your thought process will never be faster than your belief system.
As a healer, we take a beating and we give so much because we're constantly going. So it's hard for us to get care, to take care of ourselves.
Dr. Sean Drake is the founder of Modern Athlete, a performance innovator who has spent his career optimizing world-class competitors in the PGA, NFL, and Formula One. After a life-altering car accident forced him to rebuild his own identity, he dedicated his work to integrating quantum neurology and nervous system regulation to recode the human governor.
You got that friction to make progress, to create diamonds, right? But once it's done and it's in motion, now you're in flow. If you can't have safety in chaos, you can't be resilient. You're gonna crash.
If you could speak directly to leaders, what would you tell them needs to change right now that they might not understand about the power of their influence and on the nervous system?
Well, I think number one is...
Welcome back to the Evolving Athletes podcast. Today's guest isn't just a doctor or performance guy. He's one of those rare humans who saw where athlete health, recovery, and human performance were going long before the rest of the world was ready to understand it. He was the original multi-sport athlete, the kid who carried confidence, energy, love everywhere he went until a car accident blew that entire world apart. And out of that devastation, he somehow rebuilt himself into a healer, innovator, who now works with everyone from extreme sports athletes to executives to everyday people who forgot that if you have a body, you're an athlete. But here's what makes this episode personal for me. I didn't just study Sean's work, I experienced it. Flew out to Arizona, walked into his world, and within minutes, he read my energy, adapted the entire day around what I needed. And he took me through a process that changed the way I think about recovery, performance, and nervous system regulation. We did PMF, compression work, quantum neurology, breath work like I'd never done, hiked Camelback, paddleboarded Salt River. And it wasn't just modalities. It was the way he saw me. It was the way he connected the tools with the human. It was the way he brought science and intuition together in real time. And that experience left a real imprint on my life. It helped me understand my own body and my own energy at a level I didn't know I actually really needed. And so today isn't just a conversation, it's a deep dive into the mind and heart of someone who's become a great friend, a trusted guide, and one of the most forward-thinking healers I've ever met. We're going to talk about what it feels like to see the future early, to carry ideas other people don't understand yet, to protect your purpose and your nervous system while the world catches up, and how he blends data science, tools, connection, intuition, and systems thinking to create an experience that is truly one of one. My guest today is Dr. Sean Drake. Sean, brother, welcome to the Evolving Athletes podcast.
Man, I'm speechless and humbled. That was probably the best introduction I think I've ever heard anybody say of what God has blessed me to be able to do. So thank you.
So
Johnny, Utah.
yes, sir.
No, number one, dude, honestly, like, congratulations on getting this podcast up and running, right? Like, we have, as leaders, as business people, like, we have these ideas that sometimes come to us and say, hey, we're going to do this. And there was a spark inside of you when you were at the Genius Network, for the Black Swan event. And, being able to see that spark get oxygenated and actually like create this. And I've been watching as you've been interviewing other people, but dude, I'm stoked for this morning. Obviously our time together is very sacred and precious to me. So let's roll.
Yeah, amen to that, brother. Amen. No, and it's like you said, man, that's the cool part about what you've tapped into. And, again, it's crazy to like go through this journey and dive in and really understand. That's what excites me the most about this interview is like diving into really that part of your story. Cause it's so, we're going to dive into it, but it's so amazing. Like, to look at your background, right, and what you've achieved with it and where you've taken this. I'm excited for the listener to be like, because this is the future, like it truly is. And, as always, I love you, man. And I'm pumped, man, to be able to go through this journey now with you and just to share with our audience. But yeah, like you said, let's jump in. When I look at your background, right, one of the first things that stands out to me is that you were that kid, the true multi-sport athlete that we all talk about, right? 7 sports, insane confidence, ton of love, support, and the identity that was wrapped around, being the athlete that you were gifted, right? But you were validated for that gift at a young age. So, that comes in. I'd imagine that shaped you emotionally, spiritually, socially, all that. So when you think back to that version of you, what did being the athlete give you emotionally and spiritually at the time?
Well, I think it's two things. At that time, it was very ego driven, right? Like it was very avoidance of emotion somewhat. And, being a military kid, you moved a ton. Like I went to 13 schools in 12 years and, we'd be in a base that's in the middle of nowhere and, had no ocean. So I had to figure out, okay, what am I going to do now, to moving to a location that was now like in snow. And you're like, okay, well, what am I going to do now? And so it was never this thing of like, hey, you're gonna pick one thing. Like, my mom being a single mom, my parents divorced when I was 2. My dad was special forces, my mom was supply. So I grew up in this dichotomy of chaos and resilience on my dad's side, and then like very like specific order on my mom's side, logistics, right? And so it was this constant, evolution of, okay, well, I got tired of certain sports because we'd move to a base and someone's dad would be the coach. And like, even though you were the better athlete, there was the politics of it, right? And so at a young age, I really like started to look at individual sports that I could like really perfect, that even though I was on a team, I was battling myself.
Mm.
And so it was a lot of internal struggle, right? So, if I didn't succeed or I didn't do well, that was on me. That wasn't on my teammates. That wasn't on anybody around me. My coach always used to joke, we have it on our state championship t-shirt from high school, is that, if at first you don't succeed, blame your parents, not the coach, because of your DNA. And, to me, I was blessed. I had a mom and dad. Even though I only spent the summers with my father, my dad challenged me in ways my mom couldn't. But what my mom did do, and that she continues to do, is she's like, look, let's try something else. Like it's like, hey, you may not be good at that, but let's keep going. Let's keep diving deeper into something. So it's constantly evolved into really challenging. Okay, how much do I want to put in for me? Like, what's my purpose? What's my why? And oftentimes I didn't know what that was, other than trying to fit in, be the best, and get, popularity points quick. Like I'd move to a school and be like, okay, well, I know that if I'm a good athlete, that's going to bring some opportunity. I know that if I show up in some type of club or sport or, something on campus, social club, that's going to bring in energy, right? So
Mm.
at a young age, I was involved in, I basically was up at 4 a.m. and, I got dropped off at school early before anybody got there. And, I was in the library reading, or I was doing something. And then after school, like my mom would be late. So I'd be in an after school program and then I'd do something else. So it was really like just constant go. And through this interview, we're going to talk about where stillness came into play. But,
Mm.
I do think that growing up as a military kid, moving to multiple locations, not having things that I truly loved be there, having to find other things that could fill that void within me, that allowed me to continue to go on.
Yeah. So powerful, man. It's so fascinating, right? When we think about how, the environmental constraints that happen in life, right? Because so many people think, "Oh, I can control it. I can control it. I can control it." And you couldn't control any of that. That was just a circumstance of a relationship of your parents, and you were along for the ride. And so, there's a beautiful irony behind that of like, on the one side, having to adapt to every single one of these different environments shaped you, right? As a young man, to be able to deal with adversity and adapt like that. But at the same time, there's that internal struggle of, man, like having that ability to just be in one place in that way, right? And not having to make it feel so chaotic. You know, what was one of your first memories of like, as you were coming up, where you kind of saw it either as a strength or as a detriment to your life when you were younger, right? While you were in that ego state, what did that feel like to you? Like, what were you wrestling with as a kid with that?
Well, I think, obviously, affirmation, right? Whether that was from my parents, my coach, like looking for, oh, you're doing a good job. And it, and it was one of these things where it was like, and I know a lot of our athletes struggle with this too, that we work on consistently with the work that we're doing, but your identity is not in the sport. Your identity is not in your business. Your identity is not like learning how to truly love yourself and say like, dude, I'm proud of you. Like, you know what? Like, I love who you are, Sean, whether you have this or not. Like, I love you. And it took years and years. And it's funny because I just went through a breath work on Monday at my old studio that I used to teach at. And since my divorce, like, and we'll get into how I kind of created the system now, but like, I finally felt joy and love for myself again after after like 2.5 years, right? And I've got an amazing life. I've got an amazing wife, dog, family, business, friends. But there was this like piece of my heart that was just hardened and crusted, and like in the breath work on Monday, it just melted. And it was like I finally had this smile that I couldn't get rid of, right? Like, and I wish I would have had that as a kid. You know, I think that it would have resolved a lot of the problems, whether it's, you know, addiction, numbness, whatever you're running from. But, you know, when I can work with a young athlete or a young man or a young female and get them to realize that they are amazing as who they are, and like every single cellular piece of them, that's the power. And then from there, we can build, right? Like we have a good foundation. Now we can build into anything. That's when anything's possible.
Right.
When you're not searching and trying to reach and like numb, that's when like the awareness and God activates this power and energy inside you that literally like anything's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. It reminds me of the old, you know, when we talk about putting the mask on first in the plane, right? Before you help others. And I think that's such a misconception for people of like not realizing you got to love yourself. Like the identity of you have to know what that feels like first.
Vinny, I'm so sorry. And this is my wife. I just want to make sure she's okay. One sec.
Yeah. Yeah. All good. Okay.
Okay, Keeks. I'm on the podcast.
Hey, Keith.
Vinny says hi. Here, hold on. Say hi to Vinny.
Hi.
Hello. Hello.
Say hi to the audience, honey.
Oh my God, that's embarrassing.
We're putting this one on.
Dr. Greg Rose, one of my mentors, one thing that he taught me when I was with him at Titleist Performance Institute is that when your wife or your mom calls, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you pick up. So
very true. It's very true. But yeah, the power of that, which is so important, right? Is that fundamentally we forget that if I don't feel the feeling, and this is one of the things I loved that happened with us, right? When we were there, a little moment of where I was talking to, you know, one of our students, I was texting with, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And you pointed out, and you corrected, and you're like, well, ask more about the feeling as opposed to what they're thinking. And it was such a small, quick moment, but it just made me realize of like, right, yeah, like, duh, play for that feeling, right? That's our whole thing. But to your point, it's like, and this is the part that I love about, you know, how you focus on nervous system and get into that, is that a thing we always talk to our players about, right? Is your thought process will never be faster than your belief system. And what you're tapping into with that part of understanding, I've got to heal me first when I'm younger. And I think that's the part we forget about development when minds are younger and they're coming up as leaders or anyone that's helping out, is that how do you feel? What are you sensing initially? I think that gets lost so much in the process of developing a human being and optimizing it in a way where it's like, if we don't get to the source of them feeling it, not thinking it, because I think this is a big mistake. And I love the feeling, then we don't have the ability to take them to that place because they have no idea what you're actually talking about if we use it from here and not from here.
Well, here's the thing is like, you know, in everything that I do with my clients, you know, and you were sitting in the chair in there. I remember that moment very clearly, right? Like you're like, hey, I gotta talk to this athlete. You know my rule, like when you come out here, there's no work, but if we got to put work, we'll put it in the schedule.
Sure.
But I said, you know, in breath work, I always tell people, I'm like, you know, if you're gonna fight it, you're not gonna be able to heal it because it's friction. If you can feel it, now we can notice where it's at and we can heal it because now we know where it's stuck, where we can move that energy. And that's really what it's about, is it's energetics. And so often, we're chasing a 3D world of like, that we're these meat suits and we're just going to work on the meat suit. I'm like, nah, it's bigger than that, right? Like, this is an energetic world that we're living in, this quantum field. And so if the athlete can't feel it, they can't sense it, they can't come back to it in moments of chaos or high performance, right? So when we're training or we're working with a client, I'm like, number one, if I'm getting you like to feel a certain position for a pitch, I want to know, okay, this is the position you want to be in? Cool. Where do you feel that power in your body? So that way, when you step on the mound, or a CEO, for instance, that I'm working with right now, a lot of like brain fog, just stress, anger, frustration, and that immediately goes to his stomach. So as we worked with him while he was here for an intensive, we cleared that, but then we got to, okay, well, where am I at when I'm in my power? Where do I feel that energy? So I know that I can get him prepared before a big meeting or before a big decision, or when he walks into his, office, to say, okay, are you feeling that stress, that dysfunction, or are you feeling that power? And now we can get into breath work. We can get into like, intention setting. Now we can get into the moment, the present moment of performance. And that's where that feel comes into play. That's where you can really start to use the feeling as like one of the most powerful tools that you have in your tool belt.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to dive deeper into that, through the process, my own experience from the stomach too and all that. But, it's interesting of like now when you talk about from your story, right, of that feeling, and you shared publicly, right, about the car accident in your early 20s, the pain, the medications, set medications behind it, like you're on a bunch of stuff, right? Being told that you're never going to run again. There's so much of an identity behind that. And to have it collapse, right? Most people don't face that. And yet out of it, you had this line, which I love, that when you're a healer, you can't be anything else.
Yeah.
And so, that didn't come instantly. It came from the pain, the fear, and the rebuilding. Talk about that, unpack that line, for us, of like what it actually means to you after the accident, the meds, that prognosis of like, okay, yeah, when you're a healer, you can't be anything else.
Well, I mean, it's like from a young age, like I can go through certain injuries that happened that led me into that feeling of wanting to be in the medical side somehow, right? But I fought it. I was like, no, I'm going to go be a fighter pilot. No, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it was like and even now, like in this present moment of you and I talking, like, I get this urge to want to do different things because I'm like, oh man, like I know I could kill that financially. I know I could do this. I know I could do that. And every single time that I try to step away from this work, God humbles me. And in a way that I can't, I'm tired of that pain of like disappointment and frustration. So I said, okay, fine, I'm gonna lean into it, right? Like, and as a healer, like you are not choosing to be a healer. Like healers, it's chosen for you. And once it's activated and once it's this like awakened moment, like you can't turn back. Like you have to. It's like you have a choice of good or bad, right? It's like the red pill or the blue pill.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's like, no, I'm choosing this world. And once you choose that, now you have to understand that, okay, you're stepping into a selfless, and it's like pastors, it's like people that serve, mission work. Like once you choose that, you realize that this is not your life. Like you have a responsibility for humanity, and you have to be willing to struggle, to feel pain, to have those moments of like, you can't be selfish. And it's a constant battle. A lot of healers I know, like I might get a little emotional, but like we genuinely, like we take a beating, right? And we give so much. And there's so many times where, I have very close friends of mine now that we run a healer event where like literally we just go and lock ourselves up for 3 to 4 days and we just work on each other because, we're constantly going. And so it's hard for us to to get care, to take care of ourselves. And that's why I built the facility I did. It's like I didn't build it for my clients. I built it for me. Like, you know, to be able to take care of myself and enhance my energy and be able to perform at a higher level. And so I think that's where it comes down to, is that, you know, when you are a healer, it's chosen for you. And
Yeah.
if you step into it, beautiful things happen. And when you try to avoid it, that's when you're going to get humbled. Like you're going to be brought back. It's just whether or not when you're willing to and ready to.
There's so much depth to what you just said there, right? Of like, yeah, and for the listener, I don't want you to misconstrue of just, oh, a healer, well, that's not me. You know, talk about that aspect of it. I think a lot of people don't realize there's a natural order to the way they operate. There's a natural guide that I find in today's world, especially because of social media or just, you know, social influence, that I got to be something else when there's really this signal. There's a signal telling you what you're describing. That's what's really important for the listener to understand, is that we all have this intuitive signal that's telling us something of, this is who you naturally are. And if you can align with that, the fighting is going to get a lot easier. The stress is going to get a lot easier because you are aligned with who you are actually designed to be. And this is something with our work that we put a lot of time into, of helping. I tell people all the time, right? I don't tell players what to do. I just reveal that they already know the answer and then help them to believe in that answer more and more. Talk about that part for you of what you've seen of that signal for people to recognize is a real thing, how to tap into it. Because as a healer, your sensitivity to it is so much stronger and your life has shown you. But for the average listener, what they might be wrestling with, what might be the signals that maybe they're not seeing, what can you share in that part that you can put words to?
Well, I think intuition, right? All the answers are inside you. All of them. It's whether or not you're willing to be still long enough to listen and feel. And so often we avoid, and it's getting harder and harder, right? Like technology, social media. We're in this dopamine chasing world right now. And I'm guilty of this too. All of us are. But, you know, at the end of the day, a lot of people are not willing to listen. They're not willing to feel because they may have not had a safe childhood. They may have never been allowed to do what they truly wanted to do or be. I think at a young age, we're given light, we're given wisdom, and somebody may say like, no, that's not for you. That's not going to happen. Right. And so to me, we have to unchain all of the holds that have been put on us. And that's where this deep work is so important, and where, you know, really saying I'm committed to myself, to not just get in the gym, to not just go to a therapist, but to really like do the hard work and say, okay, I'm willing to face that. I'm willing to look in the mirror, right? Like I love Michael Jackson's, you know, Man in the Mirror. And, you know, it's like, if you want to be, and even Gandhi, I mean, these are all cliche things, but like, if you want to be the change, you have to be willing to change. And you have to be willing to sit in some of that darkness, that pain, that struggle, those imperfections. And I never say that someone has a problem or they have a injury. I actually dislike those words. I like to say, no, you have a limitation. Whether that's physical, energetic, emotional, spiritual, those are just limitations. And the cool thing about that is that when there's just a limitation, there's opportunity, there's hope. When there's an injury, like or a problem, we're at a lower vibration. So it's going to take us a lot longer to quote heal that, versus over here when we're like, no, that's just a limitation. I can train that. Automatically I'm at a higher vibration. So it's really looking at the vibration of where your mindset and your energy is to really go to that next level.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's interesting, right? Because it's like, I think what's hard sometimes for the listeners, right? Of like, mentally you're thinking of these thoughts, but physically you're feeling them. And that friction, right? Of like, well, how do I can sense this, but like example, a simple one that I'll use with coaches, right, is oh, like, oh, I never said that to them, right? And it's like the player knows, like, hey, I can feel there's an issue with you, like there's something bothering you because I've seen how you act cool to other people, but then I see how you're acting towards me, and there's an energy that's just not the same. So I think a lot of people deal with the same idea of I can feel energetically something's off, and in my mind it's saying things, I can feel it, but in my mind it's like, well, no, everything's fine, but I'm like, no. And there's this battle going on of energetically what we feel and sense versus in our minds we're trying to make logic of it, and it's like, well, I can tell like there's something going on, but you're not being clear. And I'm amazed at how often, example with our players, when they gain that clarity of, oh, then the coach tells them, hey, I was struggling at home, or hey, yeah, I wasn't happy that you did this, now that makes sense. So it's this intertwine between my gut and intuitions telling me something about myself, but then my head gets in the way because in reality, I'm missing information.
Yeah.
How do you think people deal with that aspect of this part of the journey of how did you deal with that, of where you're between, because like you said, you wrestled with it, right? You go going back and forth. Where did it become clear in such a way that you were like, that's it, I'm going with what I can sense, and now I'm going to create language to it in reality so other people can join me?
Well, I think a lot of times people crash. Well, they stop following their dream. They quit. They numb. They become addicted to something. And I've been through all this, right? And like I still struggle with a lot of this. Like it's a never ending process. And it's if someone says like, "Hey, I'm perfect," or "I figured it out," like probably go to somebody else.
Exactly.
I'm very vulnerable with all my clients. I'm like, look, man, like the work that I do with you and with other people, like I'm doing work with myself at the same time. Like I had this strength coach come into me this week, and it's his first visit with me, and I'm like, I'm working on him, and like God, and when God speaks to me, I just listen now. I don't even hesitate, right? And so I basically kicked everybody out of the clinic, and I put a mat down. I'm like, all right, dude, we're jumping in straight into warrior work, right? And I take them through this breath work, and it's one of those things where when you have someone that is strong enough and has capacity to hold space for you, that's when you can truly like do the work. Oftentimes we're not safe enough, or we don't have an environment to be able to do that work. And so that's where we recluse, we basically like stop doing what we want to do. We go into a place of dis-ease, right? So our nervous system's in complete sympathetic. And then we create spirals. And so when we create these spirals, next thing you know, it's like, well, I said I didn't want to do that, but the pattern's showing me that I'm continuing to do that. And so you get this disconnection. And so then you beat yourself up, and now you're in this negative feedback loop. And that's where, taking a moment to pause and say, okay, my dog's about to jump in. How do I really how do I see myself, and like, what do I really want for my life? And that's where it comes down to, because I see so many athletes that are right there, right? And they, what's up, Bubba? Hi, good morning.
Martin. Oh, Dave, what up? What up?
But like, when you look at it, it's they can't handle the pressure. They can't handle that pain. And so they crash. When in reality, if you get the nervous system safe, and you get and you regulate the nervous system, not the problem that they quote think is a problem, but this limitation, now all of a sudden they're able to deal with it at a higher capacity. And by doing that, now all of a sudden they can literally do anything. It's like, oh wow, okay, yeah, this is just part of the process. It's part of my story. I can come back from this. I can not only that, I'm gonna be better. Because whatever caused that injury or that situation, it was already in their life. But in this moment of dysfunction, now we can work and clear all the other crap, whether that's physical, emotional, spiritual. And now when they get back, there is such a higher level that they're able to do things they could have never done on this other side.
Yeah, I love that. And what I love that you pointed out too, right, is the importance of being able to have a place that anchors back to how you see yourself and what you want, right? Because those are two fundamental when we talk about any type of mindset work. How you see yourself is a consistent battle because the world is going to tell you something different, and you're going to be like, "Well, no, that's not me." So you have to resilient, right? You've got to battle with that of like what you see yourself as, and then with the other part is, well, how do I want to behave? What do I want?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times people misconstrue what they want with, well, what do I want out of life as like I'm chasing something versus, no, what do you want to be? Like, what do you just want to literally be as a human being, right? As a leader, as somebody who's modeling, like, what are you choosing that you want to just be as opposed to, well, I want this thing, as opposed to, no, this is just who I want to represent myself as love, right? Character, whatever that is. I think a lot of people get misconstrued with the idea of the identity to being an athlete or being something else versus, no, this is just how I want to behave. This is just how I want my energy to go out to people. And I'm going to fight for that. And I think that gets lost sometimes in translation through this process.
100%.
Well, one of the things I love too about you from a leadership, on that note is that, how even after the adversity you went through, you never stopped being an athlete, right? You kept competing. We got back on triathlons, surfing, skydiving, all that stuff, right? And you're still chasing those edges. You're still feeling that fear, still testing yourself. And I know it's not random for you from a leadership standpoint. That's part of your leadership philosophy. Why is pushing yourself still so important to you as a leader and as a healer, right? How do those experiences help to keep you connected to the athletes and the everyday humans that you're personally serving?
Well, I think it comes down to two things, right? Like, I can't ask you to do something I'm not willing to do myself. And when I find, like, I try to pick one audacious goal every year that's almost impossible, just know that anything's possible. And, whether it's an Ironman, whether it's like picking up a giant mountain, whether it's taking up a new skill, at the end of the day, if I am not challenging my nervous system for evolution, how can I try to help or even hold space for you to be the best version of you? And, that's where it comes down to this dichotomy of complacency and just like being, complacency of being, right? Like, I think oftentimes people are like, oh, I'm sitting still, I'm lazy. Like, I'm like, no, that there's an important moment for that rest or for that stillness. But then on the other side, I'm like, I want to see what's still possible within me. I was in Yellowstone during COVID, and I was able to hit like 40 national parks in like 60 days. And, one of the things is this old man was running down the hill and his wife's yelling at him like, stop, you're going to get hurt. Da, da, da. And she walked by me and I'm like, do you realize that's the most alive he's probably felt in like 20 years? And that's going to give him probably another 10 years. And she started yelling at me and I'm like, whatever. I'm like, it is what it is. Right. But like, we have to activate that young boy or girl inside us. That feel of feeling alive, and at the end of the day, like, yeah, people are like, oh, extreme sport. If you see Nitro Circus in the back, they're like, oh, those guys are crazy. I'm like, no, they're not. They're probably the most sane people I know, but they just understand risk and reward at a higher level. They're willing to put their life on the line because of something they believe. And, that's why I love pushing myself in these crazy environments, right? Like, if you can't have safety in chaos, you can't be resilient. You're going to crash. You're never going to truly become who you were meant to be. And that's why, like, I love when people come out here and work with me, like, I push you in ways that you have never been pushed, because I have to see where, number one, where's your baseline? Where's your fear been set? And where's your like lack of faith been set? And then once I know where that is, okay, now we can do work. Now I can take you to the next level. Now I can actually challenge you in ways that you've never been challenged. And what that's going to do is all of a sudden you get done working with me and you're here and you've been living here. Well, you only have like now you have to move up. And when you raise, everything around you is going to raise, which means you're going to shed some of the things that are in your life. Like you're going to have to be willing to let go of like friends, life, jobs, people, relationships, money. Like it's just going to happen. Like period.
Yeah, it's beautifully stated. And I love that line, man. If you can't have safety and chaos, you can't be resilient. That's like hockey culture in a nutshell of the world I live in with that part. But it's like crazy of you just nailed it. Just nailed it. And I love how intentional you are of being able to, observe life and go, this is the place that's going to push me to that point and help me to change. And so in that respect, when you think about, because this is one of the things I love about you is that you're leading in that reality, but then it's clearly changing you as a human being, right? And so when you think about it as a leader, practitioner, healer, is there a recent moment in the ocean, in the air, in any kind of race where being stretched like that changed the way you treated or coached or led someone the next week or the next day? Like, can you remember a recent moment where that happened?
Oh, every time. Like an instance, the last Ironman that I did in Boulder, I challenged myself to only train for 2 weeks for it. And, I wanted to use my philosophy on energy and capacity and resilience. And so, it allowed me the following week, one of my players obviously was getting ready for a big event. And it like allowed him to realize like, dude, this is possible. Like I can do this. And it showed me like, cause I pushed myself to the point where like I had straps to me. So that way, like I pushed myself to the absolute brink of death. Right. Which I'm not going to do with a random person, but I'm literally like seeing, okay, where is this like edge of my max? Like, where am I absolutely like done that I have nothing left? And how can I stay safe and calm in that fear? Right. Like when you're, working out at 8% oxygen and you've got, blood flow restriction on and you've got, a ton of electricity going through your body, your brain's trying to figure out, okay, what the hell's going on? But at the same point, it's like, well, now I go to altitude. I have no problem. I'm in the water. Like at first, I'm like, I hadn't swam at all. I told myself I wasn't going to swim. So, I mean, you get in the water, you got all these people around you. And at first, there was this like fear within me. It was like, shit, like I might quit. And I'm like, no, you're not going to quit, dude. Like, just get calm. Like one more stroke. And it was this evolution even within myself of like, I just had to get to that next point, right? I had to just do that next thing. And because of that, I was able to complete the goal. But by completing the goal, I inspired several other people that were watching, right? Like we don't realize who's watching us. And so that's why like when I, go to these sweat lodges or I, go jump out of an airplane, I'm not doing it to say, hey, look at me. I'm saying, hey, this is a medicine that's possible for you. Like skydiving is not a addiction for me. It's like a church for me. It's like when I jump out of the airplane, that's the most peaceful moments I have. When I get under my parachute and I can just be there for a minute and just appreciate the present moment, right? Like when I'm underwater scuba diving, like you only have one thing to worry about, your life, the present moment. And so these things these modalities that we use as medicine inside this clinic and that I use with my clients and my athletes, I tell them this is not something you're doing for recovery. This is a present moment focus of what you're doing for your life, period. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's well said, man. And you nailed it, right? Because it's But you bringing yourself back into those moments is so powerful because you're just re-engaging back with survival mechanism, but you're doing it in such a spiritually intense way where it's safe because you know you're doing it. You know, I'm intentionally going to go there and I know I'm going to work through it. Like there's this understanding and knowing about yourself. But what seems crazy to others is to you, it's like, this is how I'm tapping into it. And I think that's the part that a lot of people might misperceive of, you don't have to go jumping out of planes. You don't have to go do all the stuff like that. But what's your thing? What's your thing that just pushes you into that zone where you have no other choice but to think about and be present in the moment? And that could be anything, right? It's
Yeah.
go do a comedy skit or, get talk in front of people, like find what that is for you, and what you're saying, right? And engage with that because you're forced into presence because of that.
Well, I would actually take the word forced out of it, right? Like
Yeah.
you're flowing into it, right? Like
Mhm.
you're choosing to be there.
Right.
When we're forced, we're creating that friction again, right? Like it's like I don't ever
How
want
do
to
you
be
force
forced.
fear? And it's a good point you make. How do you force the fear that you feel initially when you do it?
Well, I think initially it's like you are you're making a choice to create change. So you may have to like at in the beginning force yourself, right? Like
Right.
it's you got to have that friction. Friction, you have to have friction to make progress, to create diamonds, right? Like but once it's done and it's in motion, now you're in flow.
Yes.
And if you continue to force, you're going to crash. You're going to create problems. There's going to be issues. There's going to have all these other things. But I'm okay with using the word force in the beginning because we have to create friction for change. We have to create momentum. Well, once we've created the momentum, now you have to learn how to be in flow. You have to understand how to actually like roll with it and like and learn how to play. Like I think that's a big thing too.
Yeah, you nailed that, brother. It's funny that this is. I was talking to a lot of players about this, particularly in the beginning of the season, where we talk about how in the beginning, yeah, you're forcing workouts, and as pro athletes, they'll go into the gym and they'll do something and they'll figure out, wow, this works. So in the beginning, their first couple of years, they're forcing themselves to go into something that's painful, hard, sometimes boring. But what they find is then they play their season, and when they come back, they're like, wow, I feel so much better. This works for me. It's good. So now when they go back to their training, they're just going to do the same training again, but this time it's not forced. Now, this time they just know, oh, I'm just going to do that thing and that thing. And I don't need to do anything more. I don't have to force myself into becoming so much better at this because I already know what works.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're tapping into when you bring that up of in the
100%.
beginning, you have to force it, you have to go. But then when you find it, it's like, oh, okay. Now in context, when somebody's looking at it, it's like, oh my God, you do all this stuff. Wow, that looks so hard. It's like, but it's not hard for me. I've done that or I know that works. So of course I'm going to keep using that. I'm going to keep doing that because it works for me.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, let's dive into as when I visited you, like this is the coolest part of like as we started kind of pulling some of the things together of, when I came out and visited you in Arizona, I got the full Dr. Sean Drake experience, right? The PMF, compression, quantum neurology, the breath work that I'd never touched before, which is unbelievable. You ended up taking me out, right? Went to Camelback Mountain. We did the Salt River and it was unbelievable, right? But what stood out to me wasn't just the tools. It's the way you read me, the way you saw my energy in real time. And then you built the day around what you felt was needed, not just a preset kind of protocol. And that's a gift, right? That not many practitioners have fundamentally, right? So talk about for the listener, and this is what's cool about that you saw me in that raw energy. And this is a cool part of where, getting a little bit of insight into what you saw in me with that part, but then, what you do with your work is that what did you see when you read my energy? And how did that guide you to using the tools and healing that you provide, for our experience together?
Well, I think it's two things, right? Like, Dave Asper's a huge mentor of mine, like a big brother, right? He was just out here for a couple days and did a one-on-one with me. And I think he's going to be okay with me saying this. If he's not, Dave, I'm sorry. But he's really helped me define what I'm doing. And he said, Sean, what you're doing is state change with a splash of medicine. And medicine is not just allopathic medicine, right? Like medicine is spiritual, it's plant medicine, it's all these things. And so what I've been blessed to do through my own pain and my own shamans and guides and leaders and mentors is know, okay, number one, if all we are is sound, light, and vibration, right? If that's truly what we are, then in reality, I should be able to sense and feel when you're low or you're high, right? And if my goal, like if you think about my 3-day process, my 3-day reset that I do with clients, like when you're coming to me, day one is me getting to know your energy.
Right.
Day one is me getting you safe in your own body.
Mm.
Like so many people are disconnected from their body.
Right.
Like they're not even in it. So I'm like, well, how do I get you in it? Right. And it's like, whether you're depressed, you're angry, you're frustrated, or you're at a high performance, you're happy, but you want that 1%. It's my job to see where you are, get you into peace and joy. And if I can't get you there, it's okay. We're gonna get there. But it's now building that next level of response of like, okay, I can now work with your energy. And so for you, when you came to me, there was a lot going on, right? And I said, I told you, I'm like, just trust me. Just give me 100% faith in you and let me do what I do. And you were like, I'm in. And it's like when I have true faith in what I'm doing, I know for a fact miracles are going to happen. I know it. And at the end of the day, it's not my job to heal you. It's my job to give you an environment to heal yourself. It's my job to teach you in your cells and your soul that, hey, anything's possible. I know I can do this. And that's really where it's at. So with you, it was number one, getting you out of the anger and frustration of things, right, that you were dealing with.
Yeah.
And getting you to realize, like, dude, I'm okay. And once we did that, now it was like, okay, now we can perform. We can go to that next level. We can do the next thing.
Yeah, it's unreal. When you think about it, like talk about that part of like, walk the listener kind of through of like what you remember of that aspect. And I'm okay with like the sharing of like examples, right? Of I noticed this, and so we're gonna go here. I'm gonna use this. Like what's kind of like an example for listener to know?
Well, let's say this is the first day that I met you at Black Swan. You were so pissed off about not playing hockey.
Yeah.
You're in hockey, but you're not playing hockey, right?
Right.
Even though you're playing hockey.
Right.
But your ankle foot injury was holding you back because you weren't standing in your fucking power. Excuse my language.
No, all good.
Right? Like I'm gonna get emotional on this because this is real. And I saw that. And I was like, dude, just get to my fucking clinic. Right? Bring your wife.
Yeah.
I know we're at a seminar. Give me an hour of your time.
Right.
It had nothing to do with your ankle injury. Good morning, Paige. It had nothing to do with your ankle injury. It had everything to do with a lost dream. I had to get you reconnected in your body around that injury. And so we were able to use quantum neurology and like, chiropractic and sound and vibration. And, I put your wedding song on for you and your wife, right? If you remember, like,
oh yeah, of course.
And so I had to emotionally connect the two of you around this space that she had to hold for you of losing that dream and realizing that you have a queen next to you that still sees you, right?
Yeah.
And so then you're like, all right, I'm in. So you get out here. And while you were here, it was no longer about the injuries and the physical side. It was all the disconnections of what could have been or what should have been or and realizing like, no, dude, like those are your superpowers now. And like leaning into those of saying, bro, like, let's love this. Let's appreciate this for a minute, right? I remember you getting a text message, you'd be like, dude, I just got on the ice and I'm skating the best I've skated since like I even played. And I'm like, well, then hell yeah, let's get back in the league.
Yeah, exactly.
But to me, it was like, it's like when you were here, there were moments that like when you really start to feel safety, you start to see things differently.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it was in those moments that I could be like, Vinny, like, dude, it's okay. Like, feel, like, cry, yell, break something. Let's go out back. You know what I mean? Like, if you can't express what you have inside you, you will never truly become who you're supposed to be. And so there was a moment that, like, you had such a hard time being stable on your feet. And it wasn't until we fully gave you a challenge, which is why I took you paddleboarding, right?
Right.
Like I took you paddleboarding on purpose because I was like, I want you to learn stability in something you're uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
And like you fell off in the first like few minutes, right?
Right. Yeah.
But we had done so much work over the 3 days together that you didn't get angry about falling off. You laughed. Like you enjoyed the failure. And so to me, it was like everything that we do has purpose, everything we're doing makes you realize, okay, this is a different viewpoint. This is a different energy process. This is a different idea. This is a different thought. And now I can actually grow with that. So everything from the physical to the emotional to the spiritual, like it's all connected. And that's where the magic comes into play when we reset a nervous system, is that once we reset it, now we can build capacity into it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's unreal, man. That's unreal. And you nailed it. Like it was crazy. Like even when I think about like, the crying moments, but the depth of them, it was like, I didn't want to say like tears of joy, but it's like, it was almost like releasing. Like it wasn't like a crying where like I'm in pain, whatever it was. It was more like, I've let go.
Yeah.
And that was one of the strangest experiences, right? Of like going through like, wow, I'm just releasing it. And like we talked about, the big thing for me was my stomach. Like I just feel like, whoa, the tension. I used to like always have this tension in my stomach, six pack and hold it, brace. And I'm like, it's not there. Like, okay, let it go. And it's just wild to see how many things flowed from that. So it's appreciate you sharing that, man. Because again, it's just for people to understand the nuances with that. But for you personally, right? How do you balance what to explore versus what to go all in on, right? Like, what is your exploration versus exploitation decision making look like?
I think it's a couple things, right? It's like knowing where you're at and like knowing how to keep you safe and push you without breaking you. Because again, like my goal is to empower you to do anything. My goal is not to break you to feel you're a failure. And it's a delicate balance, right? Like it's like you're dancing. And so at the end of the day, like that's the ultimate thing, is like, where are you at? Like, everybody's different that comes here. I may have certain like tools and parts that I use in a system, but nobody's the same. So they should never be treated the same. They should never be directed the same. They should never be shown like what to do the same. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it's like, where are you? And then what are your goals? Like, because like if I'm a genie and you get 3 wishes, I ask you on day 1. Like it's my job to make sure we hit those. And if I can't, I got to find somebody in your life that can get you there.
Right. Yeah, nailed it. That's one of the things I love about too, for, with you, of like the core philosophies of, being able to like, that I deeply believe in as well, right? Is that if you have a body, you're an athlete. And so, on this show, we talk about evolving as athletes all the time. But you stretch that concept even further with this type of work, right? That you invite every human being into that identity. Even though we're saying earlier, like, kids, pros, CEOs, right? Retirees, doesn't matter. You apply it to everyone. why is that framing important to you? Because like you said earlier, like we want to be careful of not having an identity, but why in this reality do you utilize athlete, right? As
At
part
the
of
end of the day, like, dude, life's a sport. It's gonna kick your ass. Are you training for it?
right.
Like, you may not be training for a physical sport, but you are training for longevity. You're training for life. You're training for relationships. You're training for legacy. And if you want to be on the sideline and you don't want to, and you want to be in the stands watching, don't work with me. I'm not going to accept mediocrity. If you want excellence, I'll help you become the best version you've ever been. But at the end of the day, like, if you have this thought that, hey, I'm just going to coast through life, yeah, coast. I want people that want to change humanity.
Yeah. Beautiful. Couldn't agree more on that end, man. And it's, it's interesting you bring up of like changing humanity through sport in that way. And you said something that, hits me deeply, as a coach, right? Is that an athlete can't heal or excel if their nervous system is chronically stressed.
Mhm.
And, the problem isn't always the competition, right? A lot of it is how leaders, parents, coaches, bosses talk to and treat the athlete, right? And so let's dive into this aspect of things of where what does the chronic nervous system stress actually do to performance and healing?
Um, we're gonna have to do that on another podcast. I got
Go.
a full house today. But I'll touch on it and then we'll do another one. But I think when you look at chronic stress that hasn't been trained, it shows up in everything from cancer to dysfunctional relationships, divorce, financial problems, sickness, disease, disease. So you have to understand that, like, you have one life, period. What are you willing to do to have the best life? That's it.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, no, that'd be an awesome one to dive into. Um, building on that of like, how often is the real issue not the environment, but the leaders who influence the athletes, right? So if you could speak directly to leaders, what would you tell them needs to change right now that they might not understand about the power of their influence and on the nervous system?
Well, I think number one is like, could you close your eyes right now and feel peace and joy? And if you can't, then we have work to do. Period.
Mm, that's a big one. That's a big one. Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because again, it comes back to putting on the mask for yourself. But that's the one where I think so many leaders are challenged on is that, are you doing the work for yourself? And that's it right there. You're exposing, like, when those eyes close, yeah. Can you live with who you are? Do you find peace in it? Or is it running around, I got to do this, I got to do that, and I got all kinds. But yeah, that's amazing. Yep. Um, when we talk about setbacks, right, that are opportunities for recalibration, right? Listen to what the body's trying to tell us, right? Sounds simple, but for high performers, it's brutal. Most athletes are waking up thinking, I have to be my best today, even when the body's clearly saying not today, right? And so this is something I deal with a lot of times with players is, I use the term fuck your feelings, but really I'm not saying fuck your feelings. What I'm saying is pay attention to the signals, but you still have to figure out how to keep on working, serving, leading while you're feeling the feelings. How do you teach the difference between being soft and there's that part or hearing a real signal that's happening with your body?
Well, I think it's number one, are you a warrior? Or are you just like coasting? And at the end of the day, like, you gotta have a backbone. You gotta know where your boundaries are. You gotta know where your ethics are, where your values are. Like, do you even have your core mission written down inside your soul? And if you don't, like, that's where you're gonna have these problems.
Mm.
Like, do you have a mission statement that you live by?
How does somebody search for that in their way of like, how do you interpret that of, because you nail something that's really important of the cross section between I need to have an address to plug into the GPS to get there easily. I may hit traffic. There might be a bunch of things that happen, but because I have an address and I know exactly where I'm going, no matter what's happening, okay, I can redirect, and eventually I'll find my way there. The principle, that aspect of that mission statement, what have you observed as a thing of how you search for it or find it?
Well, I think number one, it's already inside you. You just got to listen. You got to get really clear on taking time to listen.
Yeah.
That dream's already been born inside you. You're just either choosing to go after it or not. Who are you? Who's around you? Who's helping you get there? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. What are those signals like? What are you listening to? What are you listening for?
I think at the end of the day, it's like, for me, am I feeling alive? Am I feeling excited, not anxious? Right? Like if I'm around something and I'm feeling anxiety, like I'm probably in the wrong place.
Yeah.
I'm probably like moving in the wrong direction. So I go with where like flow's at. Like I tend to say like you have a dimmer switch, and I notice when my dimmer switch goes down, who's around me, and I start blocking them out of my life, start cutting them out. If there's a food I eat and it brings me down, I'm like, okay, I'm not eating that anymore. Like if I'm watching something and it makes me feel like crap, I'm like, not going to do that anymore. Like my wife and I were watching a show the other day, and I'm like, this show makes me feel like shit. I'm done. I'm like, you can watch this. I'm like, I'm going to go do something else. So it start being aware of your environment. So
yeah, huge one.
I love you, dude.
Yeah, I love you too, brother. You're the man. It's yeah, and you have a line that I actually love too as well. And on top of that, you are the modality.
Yeah, you are.
Your body has everything it needs to heal, right? And the tools you use, the PMF, the hyperbaric quantum neurology, it's amazing stuff, right? But none of that works without the safe space, right, that you're creating. And that's the human aspect of this, not the technological. And that's what fascinates me about your work is how you're merging the data science, the recovery tools, the nervous system metrics, with the collective systems thinking and the connection there, right? You're one of the few people who can actually make technology amplify humanity, not replace it. And so when you say you're the modality, what are you trying to wake up in people?
Your soul. You gotta train it. That's it. Get that light dimmer switch turned all the way up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. How do you create from that safe space so the tech actually amplifies the healing? What's like something of like for the person that you're using as the human to make them feel safe with what they're about to experience?
I think number one, you got to know why you're using the modality. Like, just don't buy a tool because like, oh, this feels good.
Yeah.
Like, what's your purpose? What's your intention? Doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's cold plunge, sauna, breath work. Like, what's your intention? You got to have intention around it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anything that you're doing that's like when you think about intentionally helping people to trust the tools without feeling like they're being, in essence, replaced by them? Because I know it's like one of those things in today's world, right? Of so many people are worried about AI and that it's going to replace human beings in a sense. And yeah, philosophically, we can definitely get into, what could happen future? We don't know. But what I love is how you blend the idea of, no, it helps to amplify us. Let's work together. And that's what I love the most about your journey is you're finding the way to connect the two worlds right together. So how do you intentionally in that way, like get people to trust the tools? Because I think it's more about even, you being able to do that is like helping an older person trust of what's happening.
It just comes down to safety. It just goes down to safety, and it comes down to intention.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Do you think there's anything of like from a safety intention that leaders or coaches or anybody that's listening to this that they need to pay attention?
Number one, follow the next podcast that Vinny and I do. I've got 6 athletes in here right now, so I'm going to run. I love you. But I think for them, it's like, you have to, number one, realize like life is a sport. You have to train for it, which means your body can only do so much. So why not use technology to your advantage to help you get that edge, to be able to push yourself, to be able to advance your soul, advance your cellular response, get your mitochondria on a different level. And that's what I'm doing with everybody when we're in here.
Nice. How can people find you if they want to stay in touch with you?
Follow me at Dr. Sean Drake on Instagram, Modern Athlete. Vinny and I are going to be doing a bunch of stuff together, so make sure you follow him. You can look at, I think those are the big ones right now.
Yep.
And then I'm watching the new brand soon, so we'll talk about that soon. So yeah.
Sick. Well, as always, appreciate being able to get into this and to give people just a little bit of insight into your world, man. So, it's awesome to have you all, man. I appreciate it coming on.
I'll give you a quick tour to say hi to everybody. So this is say hi page, Jacob. So we use a lot of obviously PMF. This is our treatment area. I use everything from light, sound, vibration, fascia. Then we've got hyperbaric, nano V. We use hydrogen. We use CO2. So this is Cheeky, who bothered us earlier, and Odin and Randy working out. Look at that stud. Vasper, geovent, microvibration, hypoxic. We use shift wave from a nervous system standpoint. We use Nuvi, NuFit. This is one of our other PNF systems. This is Roxiva, which we actually train the brain, the mind, the soul. Lymphatic drainage with Flopresso. EQ, which is a PMF. We use cold plunge sauna. We have power plate as well from a higher vibration, and we use Solodome for sound. So that's a little bit of the process and system that we have, and dude, stoked.
Sick. Beautiful. Appreciate the tour on that. And well, guys, always, evolving as an athlete's a privilege. Every day you walk into the world, right? The conditions you face, people you're around, as Sean had mentioned, right? And the challenges you meet, they're shaping you as a human long before they shape you as a player. Yeah. So never forget that. So until next time, as always, if you felt something as a main takeaway, DM us, let us know, or more importantly, share with others. And until then, play for that feeling.
Let's go.